Well, well, hello on this Sunday afternoon. I don't know about where you live, but at least here in the southwest of England, it very much feels that summer is coming to the very abrupt end. But another video today on a topic which I've been talking a lot about to people, and it's a topic that garners at least a level of debate. Now, I'll have my opinions, you'll have your opinions. There's assumptions I'm making, there's some caveats I can't be bothered to put in, but I assume some caveats. And I have used ChatGPT again for this, just in order to collect the data. I'm sure some of you will piss your pants on the use of ChatGPT and how it's wrong. And if you think that, please keep that to yourself. I don't fucking care. But, more importantly, the reason for this video is that as a person who's attempted to now, let's say, own all of the motorbikes, give or take, number 31 arriving on Friday, I think we're at a point now in the motorcycle industry where there are no bad bikes. There is some phenomenal pieces of technology, phenomenal pieces of engineering, and a level of computer power to be able to keep some of these bikes on the road, which most of us will never comprehend. But does that make a good bike? Doesn't make a bad bike, but does it make a good bike? And I think more often than not now, if you've got some level of brand loyalty, like I've been BMW and Ducati for years, Harley a long time ago, Buell a long time ago, there's certain brands that you'll favour. Some people will buy Hondas regardless, or Suzuki's, whatever it happens to be, and you should stick with the choices that you want to make if they're right for you. But I think for a lot of people, myself included, you're picking colour. I want a blue one, that'll be a Suzuki probably. A slightly lighter shade of blue, that'll be a Yamaha. A green one, etc, etc, etc. Because there's a level of sort of the morphing into the same vehicle, give or take. Now you can throw a bit of carbon fibre at it and it can be a work of art. You can cover it in winglets, which are a thing, and it will look very striking. Single-sided swing arm, big fat tyre, exhaust underneath the seat, all those good things. But are we losing a little bit of the magic of motorcycling through very necessary development? I'm neither pro old bike or new bike, and I want a flawed bike to some degree. Some of the bikes I've got rid of recently are because they've engineered the interest out of them. Some of the bikes I've reviewed lately, for me, they've engineered the interest out of them. The S1000R, objectively a phenomenal motorcycle, subjectively for me a terrible motorcycle. R1300 GSA, objectively a fantastic motorcycle, subjectively a terrible motorcycle. For those that own those bikes and you're butthurt by what I've just said, I apologise. Don't tell me that, oh, I bought one and it's fucking brilliant and I rode to the moon. I'm sure you did. I'm sure it's fantastic. Awesome. But what I wanted to do was find out, particularly when it comes to power, because there is always a debate where, oh, this new bike is better because it has more power, or this one's got more brake horsepower there, and you go, well, more power doesn't make it better, more power makes it more powerful. But then to counteract that amount of power, there is a shit ton of electronics you have to put into that vehicle to make it manageable. And with that, I wanted to look at the bikes on a power basis only. Brake horsepower, torque, top speed, and 0 to 60. From the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, the 10s, and the 2020s. Which were and there's a screen here which I'll show you, which are the most powerful bikes from each era, the top 3 of each era, according to MCN and other. That's what ChatGPT's done for me. Go and collate that data. What was their list price when they were made, adjusted for inflation, and what would their price be today if you were to buy a second-hand one? And then lastly, for ChatGPT to pick its top three. Its top three isn't my top three, but it's an interesting top three nonetheless, and that's the point, I guess. Opinions are like arseholes. We've all got one. Now, I'm going to share my screen. You're going to see a large table, and we'll talk through it. But before I get into that, when I was thinking about this video, I started making a thumbnail beforehand. And it's really interesting, I think. If you think of the 2000s, the 10s and the 20s, there isn't a font. The 60s has got a font, the 70s has got a font, the 80s, and some degree the 90s have got a font. Which are sort of, you write that font and you go, oh, that's a 70s font. But almost like motorcycle design, car design to maybe to some degree, that the 2000s, the 10s and the 20s, they don't have a font because there's no identifying design cue that would say that is from that, I think. Anyway. Right. What do we have here? So you can see 70s, 80s, 90s, 20s, 10s and 20s, 3 bikes in each. So let's quickly whiz through this. So the 70s, we have the Kawasaki Z1, Honda CBX and the Suzuki GS 1000S. So launch here 73, 79, 79, top speed 132, 134, 135. Interestingly, not a lot of difference in the 0 to 60s. Brake horsepower 85, 105, 90. Torques, not a lot, but enough. List price when new, 800 quid, 2.5 grand and 1900 quid. And adjusted for inflation are 10, 18, that's a lot, and 14, 8. Now that reminds me actually, because I think the Suzuki GSX-S 1000 is around £14,000. So that kind of holds weight, that bike adjusted for inflation today is the same price as its equivalent one of today. And used prices are standing up very well. Not much money to be lost there. I should maybe pay attention to this list for the future. Right, next, what have we got? Kawasaki from the 80s, GPZ-9R, so the Top Gun bike. FZR 1000X Up, glorious bike, and a ZX-10 Tomcat, a glorious bike. Now, this is a sort of peak of the start of my motorcycling time. I got my first helmet in 85, so now this is where we're at, and a massive jump in top speed. So 151, 161, 165, and 3.9, 3.2, 3.2. A big drop down in 0 to 60s. That era is a big difference. So brake horsepower 115, 145, 137, and torque, as you can see there. List price when new, 32, now 14.7, 5,900 to 22,000. You know, that stands up, you know. 4.7 versus 18. Yeah. And there you go, second-hand prices. I mean, there's some bargains to be had there, I'm quite sure. Right, what have we got next? So, into the 90s. ZZR 1100. I will say that I was on the back of my father's ZZR 1100 when I was a kid in Germany, and I was sat on the bike doing about 140, 145 mile an hour. Terrible parenting. But what a bike. Then we have the Blackbird and the Hayabusa, and that's around the time of the Gentleman's Agreement where they limited the power because everything, or the top speeds, let's say, because everything was going so quick. So we have 2.8 to 60, 2.9 to 60, 2.7. So then another second jump, or half a second to a second jump from the previous decade. Brake horsepower is roughly the same. Maybe the Hayabusa is a bit more there. Torque's a jump. Money's a jump. Adjusted for inflation, it's about there or thereabouts. And used prices are probably, they're the cheapest of the bunch, really. Interesting. So, into the 2000s, ZX-12R, ZZR 1400, and the MV Augusta F4. I remember going to see the F4 at the motorbike show when it first came out, and that was a very, very beautiful motorcycle. But what we can see here, top speeds are now just silly numbers, and 0 to 60s are sitting roughly where they were the decade before. So we're not seeing that big increase in speed, despite having more brake horsepower and more torque. Prices were fairly sensible, even adjusted for inflation. And a used price, what's the most expensive one of there? Is the MV Augusta. A good one is 11 grand. That would be a good one. Right, into the tens. It's only given me 2 bikes here. I thought there was 3. Anyway, so we have the Z1000RR Gen 1 and a Panigale V4R. So, top speed is edging on again consistently. Tons of brake horsepower, tons of torque, but that's not translating into pure out and out speed. Prices adjusted from inflation are some big old numbers, and used, I mean, if you look at the used prices there, if you were just looking for power, forget beauty and all that other stuff, a 2015 Gen 1 S1000RR, you can buy a second-hand one at a good one for 6 grand. Yeah, for the Panigale, 38 grand. Yowzers. And lastly, we go into the 2010s, and we have the Hayabusa, the M1000RR, a very good bike, very uncomfortable bike for me, and the Panigale V4R again. So, no 0 to 60 for the M1000RR, don't know why, but we can assume it's somewhere around there. So again, a massive jump up in brake horsepower, similar amounts of torque, but we're not seeing the power. In fact, if you were to look at this list, I mean, you can see the prices, they're all relatively new bikes, but if you're looking at the power and the 0 to 60 time, the 90s and the 2000s are where it's at. So when people say that bike's better because it's a new M1000RR or whatever, phenomenal pieces of kit, phenomenal pieces of technology, but that power isn't translating, it would seem, into any usable performance. Let's it be said that if you've only ever ridden modern bikes and you were to jump on a old, let's have a look, what are we looking at there? Even go up a 99 Hayabusa, it's going to be an interesting ride for you. But what is interesting, you'd expect maybe to see a blade on there or some things like that, or the NR1, but they're a lot lighter and a lot flippable, and I guess geared to be doing something a bit different, where this is out and out speed. So, with that, what does ChatGPT, yes, again, calm your shit if you don't agree. I would be interested to know your top 3 from that list. ChatGPT's top 3 is a Gen 1 Hayabusa. It wins first production bike to smash 190 mile an hour. It created the general agreement, as I said, and it's still affordable, 3.5 to 5.5 grand today. That is not a lot of money for an awful lot of power. I do remember getting told back then that a back tyre was lasting 1,000 miles. If that is true or not, let me know. Kawasaki GPZ 900R Top Gun motorcycle, the world's first modern superbike, liquid cooled, 16 valves. Affordable even now, 3.5 to 6. In fact, we'll go back to that GS6R balance, cultural icon, blistering speed, real world usability. No other hyperbike ticks all those boxes so well. And for the GPZ, not the fastest here, but the most influential. I can believe that, but still not the one I would pick, I suppose. And the S1000RR, that bike drags superbikes into the electronics area, which we've just spoken about. If you're going to have all that power, you need to be able to put it down. 190 mile plus, 200 brake horsepower, and still one of the most accessible superbikes to ride hard. And today's price between 7 and 17. Balance, fast, advanced, reliable, and bang up to date in feel, which I think is a fair reflection. So, out of this particular list, what's the bikes I would pick out for me? I'd pick out the ZX10. I'd pick out the F4. And the X-Up. Because they're the bikes I remember having posters up on my wall. Now, if you've got any thoughts on this, I would like to see them. If you've got this far in the video, hit subscribe. Cheers.